But that, ladies and gentlemen, takes us to the next phase of this. And to get into that phase, I actually want to take a call because we have somebody on the phone who has a perfect question at this juncture. Name is Mike. He's in Toms River, New Jersey. Mike, I'm glad you called. I'm glad you waited and held on. What's up?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. What I'm wondering is, when does this reach critical mass? Because you said that we're living in the biggest political scandal in our lifetime, and you're good at predicting the political tea leaves or reading them. Would you make a prediction on when you believe this would turn into critical mass and somebody's heads roll?
Well, what I'm going to do in answering, yes, I will. But your curiosity here transitions perfectly to a column today at National Review by Victor Davis Hanson. Now, he has decided to answer your question, where it's going. Now, before I had seen Victor Davis Hanson's piece today, I'm a pessimist on this stuff. I never see the good guys get away with it. When I see what happened to Scooter Libby, and this just looks like a rehash of what happened to Scooter Libby, with Scooter Libby, it's the most outrageous thing. They charged a guy for doing something he didn't do, while knowing full well the guy who did do it is laughing and joking and walking free. What we have here is the Washington establishment up against Donald Trump and Michael Flynn and any of these other ancillary figures that are being used to get to Trump. And the Washington establishment, look at Mueller's team, 16. Well, some have been reassigned now. Strzok is gone. Lisa Page is gone. Bruce Orr is gone. I mean, that team's lost some people because they've botched this so badly. But still, it's the Washington establishment up against Donald Trump. And the Washington establishment consists of people from both parties who don't like the fact that Trump won, don't like that he's there. And now that he is there, they can't stand the way Trump behaves. They just don't like Trump. They don't like that kind of person. They don't like that kind of personality. Doesn't matter what good they do for the country. In fact, the more good they do for the country, Trump does for the country, the greater issue these people have with him. They're just going to make it harder to get rid of him. And I myself, okay, so we learn all of this, but still, is Flynn going to go to jail? Even though we know we don't know. But Victor Davis Hanson at National Review tackles it today. Scandal, corruption, lawbreaking, and so what? FISA-gate, Clinton emails, Uranium One scandals are sort of reaching a consensus. Many things quite wrong and illegal were done by both Hillary Clinton and her entourage and members of the Obama agencies and regime. Both the acts themselves and the cover-ups and the omissions that ensued are all on the Hillary-Obama side. Remember, in the FISA-gate scandal, such likely widespread criminal behavior was predicated on two premises. These guys at NRO write in a flowery way. What Victor Davis Hanson's saying here is, in the FISA-gate scandal, all of this Obama-Hillary behavior happened because they were certain Hillary was going to win and nobody would ever find out about it. So if Hillary wins, all these people that misbehaved are forgiven and maybe even rewarded. Number two, liberal hubris, in which our supposedly moral betters felt it their right, their duty, to use unethical and even unlawful means for the quote-unquote greater good. The greater good defined as keeping Trump out of Washington, meaning anything was permitted. The wrongdoing engaged in by the Clinton-Obama apparatus probably includes attempting to warp a U.S. election, Russian collusion, repeatedly misleading and lying before the FISA courts, improperly surveilling American citizens, unmasking the names of citizens swept up in this unlawful surveillance, and then illegally leaking their names to the media, and then disseminating and authenticating opposition smears during a political campaign, lying under oath to Congress, obstructing ongoing investigations, and using federal money to buy ad hominem gossip against a presidential candidate, not to mention blatant conflicts of interests, weaponizing federal investigations, trafficking and leaking classified information. The list goes on. That's just a short list of everything that has happened. And all of that is on the Democrat side, on the Obama-Hillary side. Now the State Department's involved. Apparently anybody who was a former Clinton smear artist can pass fantasies to a sympathetic or known political appointee at state. And if the dossier fits the proper narrative and shared agenda, it gains credence. Enough to ensure that it's passed up to senior state officials and then onto the FBI. Maybe a private citizen with a grudge against a rival should try that as well. He's talking about how easy it has been to get a fraudulent gossip-style magazine story as intelligence. How easy has that been? How easy was it to write a fraudulent, fake, phony opposition research paper and have it converted into supposed intelligence and have it used to grant warrants to spy on people by the highest courts in the land? How easy has that been, he's asking. These scandals, as Mr. Hanson writes, will grow even greater before all of the congressional investigations end. But then what? So he's asking, like the caller, what's going to happen with all this? Well, in some sense, we are in uncharted territory, given the misadventure of appointing Mueller as special counsel. His team is now replaying the role of Patrick Fitzgerald in the Scooter Libby case. Mueller is investigating a crime that did not exist, and even if it did, was committed by someone else. There is no more concise way of explaining what happened here than that. It requires some background knowledge to get it, but let me again repeat this. Mueller is repeating the stratagem of the Patrick Fitzgerald investigation, investigating a crime that didn't exist. Collusion with Russia didn't exist. There's no evidence. And when Mueller was charged, the Justice Department regulations require that a crime have been committed that the special counsel investigates. There was no crime, and yet it's an open-ended, boundaryless investigation. So it's a case investigating a crime that did not exist, but even if it did, it was committed by somebody else, i.e. Hillary colluding, Fusion GPS, and the Russians. The Mueller team's likely parachute, what that means, the way they're going to get out of this, will have little, if anything, to do with the Russian collusion that it originally was appointed to investigate. Instead, Mueller will likely settle for perjury and obstruction charges against peripheral Trump officials, if the cases are not thrown out by possible reliance on tainted FISA transcripts. So Victor Davis Hanson's alluding to the possibility that all these cases could eventually be thrown out because they lied to the FISA court in order to get the warrants that produced all this so-called evidence. And he thinks, cut to the chase, that this is going to happen. But then we get to the meat of his opinion. This is what the caller wants to know. Still, Democrats at some point are going to see that what they thought was defensible is now becoming absolutely indefensible. Adam Schiff, after months of leaking and making grandiose false statements on cable TV and getting punked by Russian comedians, is now a caricature. It's not taken seriously. He became the sad legislative bookend to the neurotic James Comey. Schiff will probably soon be forced to pivot back to his former incarnation as a loud critic of FISA court abuse, meaning Victor Davis Hanson thinks that it is over for Schiff, that he's become a joke, that he's got nothing, never had anything, and isn't going to find anything. And now that comedians are punking him and making fun of him and everybody knows about it, he's finished. If the economy keeps improving, if Trump's popularity nears or exceeds 50%, and if the polls show the midterm elections still tightening, we should see the politics of Democratic equivocation sooner rather than later. Meaning they will have to call this off. Now, he doesn't mean they're going to call a press conference and say, our investigation is over and we didn't find anything and we're terribly... They won't do it that way. They'll announce they found something. It'll be nothing. Peripheral obstruction charges against Trump people you never heard of. That they're going to have to back out of it. Otherwise, they're going to get creamed in November. He says, I think the Democrat fallback position will be to point to the career carnage at the FBI and DOJ as punishment enough, meaning we don't need to prosecute these people. We don't need, they've been punished enough through all this. But we're not near finished with this, so don't go away, folks. We're coming right back. Mr. Victor Davis Hanson believes that what is ultimately going to drive the Democrats essentially declaring victory and closing this down is a polling result now that more than 50% of the public already believes that the Trump campaign was illegally spied on and smeared through the confluence of the Clinton campaign, the Obama administration, the FBI. And that's true. I've seen that poll. 50% of the public already believes it. If 50% of the public believes this, it means the drive-bys are failing. It means they're not able to cover up what has really gone on here. It means that we in alternative media have gotten the message out. And they live and die by polls in the swamp. And if this number keeps increasing, they're going to have to cut their losses and go away. This is Mr. Hanson's theory. Hang on. And welcome back. Great to have you, Rush Limbaugh. Again, very briefly now, reviewing what Victor Davis Hanson thinks is going to happen. A lot of this is predicated on Trump's approval numbers skyrocketing, not to mention public polling showing that 50% of the public already believes that Obama and Hillary were spying on the Trump campaign and have been engaged in smearing the Trump campaign and the FBI, all part of this. It's a phenomenal number, and it's a breakthrough number. When you hit 50% on any of this, presidential approval or a poll like this, it gives everybody pause, particularly on the Mueller investigation side. So Mr. Hanson's theory is that they're going to have to sue for peace, that they're going to declare victory and go home with nothing major happening. But he thinks that Republicans accepting this outcome would be a grave error. If you let Mueller get a couple of scalps, peripheral scalps, for supposedly lying, and you charge them, because the special counsel has to get somebody, or the whole thing has been a waste of time and money, and public perception of an investigation where nobody did anything is the best argument for never having one of these. And the Democrats, they go back and forth on wanting the opportunity for special counsels or not. Mr. Hanson believes that these people need to be pursued to the end of the earth and investigated themselves. Mr. Hanson believes that Jeff Sessions has got to find his own lawyers, his own investigators to investigate Obama, investigate Hillary, investigate the special counsel, investigate the FBI, and find out just how in heck any of this could have happened. A literal tabloid trash newspaper story ends up being primary evidence for a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign as approved by the FISA court. He says investigate this and find out how in the name of Sam Hill something like this can happen. He thinks it would be a mistake to let the Democrats and Mueller and Rose, anybody involved in this, to basically shut it down, claim a partial victory, and move on. Despite a nonstop media assault on Trump's administration, Representative Devin Nunes and the Congressional Investigative Committee's more than 50% of the public already thinks the Trump campaign was illegally surveilled. Voters would only grow more cynical if some Americans were allowed to abuse civil liberties, if they were allowed to lie to Congress, if they were allowed to lie to the FBI, if they were allowed to lie to the courts, while the less connected others go to jail for much less. Without a judicial accounting, it will be impossible to clean up this mess. The hierarchies at the FBI and the DOJ, meaning without a judicial accounting of the deep state, we're never going to find out how, specifically who, this all happened. Indeed, absent accountability and punishment, the new modus operandi, and this is a great point here. If after this, and if, remember, this is his prediction of what's going to happen, that the Democrats are eventually going to have to sue for peace, the FBI, DOJ, because there's nothing there. They have nothing on Trump. And the public is starting to really sour on this, so they're going to have to get out of it somehow to save the Democrat Party and its electoral chances. And if the people that did this get away with it, then guess what we have? We have a whole new political modus operandi. And all it would require is for a similar situation to eventuate. A lame dunk incumbent president could use federal agencies to spy on the campaign of one of the candidates vying to replace him. So let's say it's 2023. And Trump is finishing his second term. And there's two candidates out there running for president. If we don't stop this, then Mr. Hanson's theory is that Trump could be the next Obama. He could use the FBI and the DOJ to spy on whichever candidate he wanted to lose and use the power of the federal government to destroy that candidate and candidacy before it gets going. Because if this is what happened here, and it's not dealt with, and the perps are not identified and punished, if this whole thing is not revealed to the American people, it's just going to happen again, particularly if everybody involved in this one gets away with it. And that is a good point. It would be only logical to conclude that criminal acts used to help a successor would be forgotten or rewarded if they worked. So what's needed? Jeff Sessions must find muscular, ambitious, combative prosecutors, preferably from outside Washington, and preferably existing federal attorneys. Direct them to call a grand jury and begin collating information from congressional investigations to get to the bottom of what is likely one of the gravest scandals in post-war American history. The effort to use the federal government to thwart the candidacy of an unpopular presidential candidate and then to smear and ruin his early tenure as president. That's the second time in this piece that very concise explanation of what's happened here has been written. The effort to use the federal government to thwart the candidacy of an unpopular candidate and then smear and ruin his early tenure as president. That's the scandal. That is maybe the gravest scandal in post-war American history, and it's got to be rooted out. He believes that it will be. Now, Mr. Hanson, I should say, has a history of thinking the good guys win. He's a worldwide historian, Greek historian primarily, but a student of world history. And he has written many columns over the years, as I recall. Can't think of any specific right now, thinking that Obama was going to get caught doing this. Obama wasn't going to get away with that, and Obama got away with all of it. So, but I can't dispute his assertions here. He's absolutely right. I think if the Democrats give it up, this will be how. And then the pressure is going to mount to not let the people that got away with this get away with it. And the danger I see there is the Republicans are going to be breathing such a big sigh of relief if it ends. They're just going to want to drop it. And they're not going to want to steal back up and get loaded for bear all over again with another long-term investigation. Here is Mike in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, as we head back to the phones. Glad you waited, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good, Rush. How about you?
Fine and dandy, sir. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, I just was thinking back, Rush, to when Hillary made her phone call to Obama on the night of the election, and I believe now it was not only to apologize for the loss, which was obvious, but more for them having to deal now with what was going to be uncovered and all the things that 1 year later are now coming to light. FISA warrants and the FBI director's collusion, Fusion 1, private servers, Uranium 1, and on and on. And I got to believe that before the election, they discussed these things, that I guess they couldn't maybe leave themselves even think that it was going to happen, that Trump could beat her. But after it happened, they're now, in a corner where they didn't want to be, obviously. And as far as Susan Rice's comments on Obama wanting to do things by the book, which, regarding Russian collusion, which obviously, again, is Stroke's insurance policy, the Russian collusion angle, it makes you wonder what weren't they doing by the book? If he wants to do this by the book, it sort of alludes to the fact that maybe other things were happening not by the book. So,
exactly. That's the exact point I made. If Obama has to go out and tell his people that this is going to be done by the book, then what are they doing every other day? They're not going by the book, obviously. Now, as for knowing what Hillary said to Obama on a phone call, I have no idea. All I know is she apologized, and we can speculate why. I mean, it's nice and sexy. I think she was apologizing for the excrement show that was about to happen because she lost. That'd be fun to think that happened, but we'll never know. Well, can't say we won't know. Never. I mean, somebody may write about it someday on the way to jail. You never know.